Welcome to the download. I'm Joel Lowe, and with me always is my close friend, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. So, everybody, welcome to the brand new year, and we're excited about this. And we always want to make sure we're speaking about relevant topics, things that's going on in the atmosphere, in the news. And for some reason, Twitter has always been in the news around these couple
Yeah.
weeks. So, we're going to talk to you about Twitter, right? And our thoughts on certain things and what we just found. And, there's some new stuff that just came out. So, Mike, run us into what we found out.
Yeah, so there's been a couple articles that are posted. The one that we're looking from as for information is bleepingcomputer.com.
Mhm.
Essentially, it's over 400 million users. Data was scraped, so that just
Mhm.
means not just their personal information, their account is public,
Right.
the at whatever your username is, but also data that you may have posted and things like that, personal information. They're basically offered that up on the dark web. But the big thing that they noted was, GDPR fines. So that's the European data privacy rights sector that, a European citizen has the right, or somebody who owns property in Europe has the right to restrict how their data is used, or if it's involved in a data breach and so on and so forth. And apparently they leverage what's called an API, which
Hmm.
typically very benign, right? You basically, it's a piece of software that's connected to your larger system,
Yep.
that allows users or other software pieces to say, "Hey, I need this information," and you don't, without you going into a database or significant work or stuff like that. You ask what's called an API. You say, "Hey, I need to know how many colors you have in the database," and it says, "Oh, I've got 13 colors." Great. Very simple, very benign. But
Hmm.
they leverage this API to grab all this information, which is interesting because Twitter probably should have noticed that API was getting leveraged by a certain IP address more often than something than not, and said, "Well, there's a lot of data going out to that IP. Let's put a
Right.
stop to that." Seems like they didn't. I don't know why. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. Um, but yeah, so that's really kind of it. And you had a great point in the as we were talking about this in the green room was everything we do in a day to day has real life consequences
Right.
sometimes. Um,
Right. So you
and
never realize, and I think when we talk about and we see things happening, like everything you do has a cost to it. Right.
right,
So there's a
right,
reason why we're always like, hey, with phishing, make sure you're looking over things and that you don't click on something because there's a cost tied to that. Right. If they're
right,
able to leverage, access into your network and get a foothold from you clicking on something, it spirals. Right. If you introduce malware into the network, right, and for some reason we don't have or we did not see it, and it propagates and does some other things to the network, there's money tied to that, even if it never goes big, right? The time it takes us to remediate it, right?
yeah,
That's stuff that we could have been doing with something else that we're now
right,
spending energy and time to make sure that one, we clean it up, and
right,
two, hey, we then talk about, hey, what happened? Hey, we need to go talk to this user. Hey, do we
right,
need to block this from everybody? Hey, do we need to send something out to everybody? All that has to be written, right? All that has to be done. And I then have to file and put a report and then send that up to management to let them know, like, hey, we had a situation, we took care of it and whatnot. Everything costs money,
yeah,
right? And then don't talk about or don't forget about then leveraging your responsibility of your reputation, right?
right,
So
yeah.
reputational cost is hard to put a value on that, right?
It is.
And once you lose it, right? Once people don't feel trust, like you're not trustworthy with my data, right? It's hard to then gain them back, right?
Yeah,
I know people that to this day still spend cash at Target, right? Or TJ Maxx, right?
yeah,
And that's been years ago, but they're like, yeah, no.
yeah,
So my thing is you never know how that's gonna affect you, right? Or affect the bottom line. And it takes years to get those data points to really figure out, okay, yeah, from a reputational standpoint, we got a hit, right? And it
right,
hurt pretty bad, right?
right,
So again, you just don't know, right? But I
right,
want you to know that when people are telling you, hey, don't circumvent these controls, or hey, pay attention to this annual security review or training that you should look at it, right? It can
yeah,
not only help you, but it also help your family as well. It help you at
right,
home. And that's what all good security people want to happen. I don't want to give you training that just helps us. I want you to be a good steward at home as well, because if you're doing good stuff at home, you'll do good practices at work as well, and that's a proven
right.
fact.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to your point, that Twitter has had some challenges. Elon Musk came in, bought the company without a true understanding of the culture of how everything put together. Half the company, it seems like, and I know that's an exaggeration, but half the company was let go. And then after the fact, people were like, "Oh no, those people had real knowledge. Like those are necessary functional option people. We need to somehow now replace." And I'm not saying that everybody is not, somebody's not irreplaceable. You're going to be replaced. But you want to have a soft transition. You want to understand, and just didn't understand culture. Like people were already comfortable working from home, and he
Mhm.
was like, "Nope, everybody needs to work here." And you're like, I can go find a job somewhere else where I can be just as comfortable working from home. And
Right.
he didn't understand that. I think he came in guns blazing with his ego, and time will tell whether he made a good decision on that or not. So what that has to do with what the briefs we're talking about is they're already down employees, right? They're already down key functional employees. Now to come back and fix all this stuff on a good day when you have all headcount and everything else, when a data breach happens, it's still a challenge.
Right.
I mean, it's even if you have a plan, or what they call run books, like if
Mhm.
this happens, do these 10 things immediately.
Right.
Even if you have all that stuff and everybody's trained and you've done the tabletop exercises and the live fire drills and stuff like that, it's still a challenge.
Yeah.
Coupled with now you're down half or a third of your employee staff, it is now turning into a nightmare situation, right?
And think about this: knowledge is your key when you're dealing with an incident, right? But
Yeah,
if your knowledge is no longer working there, right?
yeah,
And I've been in those situations where we've had to call people who worked at the company before to ask questions on, do you remember when you set
right,
this system up? Why did we do this? Right?
right,
And them to be like, that was 2 years ago. I'm not sure.
right.
Or them to explain it to us, or they could be hang up the phone like, hey, look, man, that's
Yeah,
not my problem. Right?
yeah,
Literally, what you're seeing is they're now trying to go through and look at data, figure out how they got this. How do we get in this point? How do we miss it? Right?
right.
And the people who could probably answer that, you fired,
Or have
right?
left.
Or have
Yeah,
left weeks before that.
right.
That is that
That's
is
a bad
bad
place.
math. That's a bad place to be in, right? And
Yeah,
as a leader, I would cringe at this, right?
yeah,
Oh, it's because I can't do, but so what I'm doing now is guessing. I'm
right.
guessing on why we did this, how this happened, versus having factual information. Hey, I know why we did this, Joel, because with this here and with this here, we did this. Okay, now I can make a decision, right? I have all the
Yeah,
variables. I can make a decision and say, okay, I know why we did this. This is what's going on, and I can tell this story. But what
right.
I'm doing now is I'm guessing. I think this is what happened. I don't know why we went down this path, but this is what I would do to fix it if this
Yeah,
is what it is, right?
yeah,
And that all that sounds terrible, right?
yeah.
As you look to leadership, and I'm like, I'm not sure how we got here. I think this is what it was, but we have
Right.
nobody here that can tell us that because they're no longer with us. So I think we're going to try this. And if this works, it's going to do this. Nobody in leadership is going to be like, oh, I like that. That sounds good,
That
Joel.
sounds great.
I love all the I thinks, and I'm not sure, and we're going to figure it out. That
Right. You use the word variable a lot in that. You're like, yeah, because
yeah,
we're no longer dealing with fact. We are now dealing with potential
variable.
variables of what we believe the truth to be.
Not sure.
Because
Right,
the truth is now won't answer the phone
right.
because they left on bad terms.
Right.
Um, yeah.
And my thing is, again, this is a prime example. And I feel like this is a great white paper, right? Like eventually somebody's going to write
What's
a
that
great
supposed to
white
mean?
paper on Twitter on like what this situation was. And it's
Right.
either going to be like he's a genius or it's like how to destroy a company in 30 days, right? Like it's
Right.
literally going to be one of those two. But what you don't do is immediately come in and start making changes
Yeah.
without understanding the atmosphere, understanding
Yeah.
who's important, understanding the
Yeah.
roles and responsibilities, even understanding why they run the way they do, right?
Right.
And,
Right.
and my thing is like, why is 90% of our workforce at home, right? Ask that question. Okay,
Right.
how does it affect us? Are we getting our return on investment? Are they
Is
able
it
to do
better?
their work
Yeah.
optimally? Right? If I needed them to come in, how would that switch things? Ask those questions before you say, "Hey, you're all going to come in."
Yeah.
Right? No.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, you've seen that at the banks, right? I've literally seen some of the bigger banks were like, hey, everybody's coming back in on these dates. And guess what? Everybody not come back in, right? It was like, no, no, it sounds good, but
Yeah.
I like working from home. I like to be able to
Right.
go downstairs and get in my refrigerator and go back
Right.
upstairs. No. So my thing is, before you make decisions and change things in any job you take, stop for a second, evaluate what's going on, evaluate your talent, and
Yeah.
make small moves. Don't make big moves. You
Well,
shouldn't get rid of the whole department, right? I
and to
mean,
your point, if whether you're purchasing a company, acquiring a company, starting a new job, whatever, taking over as leadership, that system works. 99% of the time, you're walking into a system, a organization that is working, right?
mhm,
Could it have improvements? That could it use improvements? Absolutely,
absolutely. Yeah,
right? Biggest room in the house is the room for improvement, right? But find out what's working and why it works, right? So to your point, we all went home, we all started working from home because of the pandemic.
mhm,
Did that improve things? Right? Do people work better? Do they execute better? Do they get things done faster? Are they working later?
yeah,
Um, and I mean that in a positive. I don't mean we're getting more hours out of them and we're paying
right,
them the
right,
same thing.
right,
Like, no, are they comfortable working, right? Because like, you know, when I went into the office, if I didn't get out of the office at 5 o'clock or slightly before, I was stuck in traffic for an hour. So I would work until 6 o'clock because
right,
at that point I would still get home at roughly the same time, maybe 15 minutes later. And I
right.
didn't sit in traffic and I had the office to myself and it was quiet.
Correct,
Right. Well,
correct.
so now it's like I can walk into my computer at 8 a.m. earlier than I would be if I went to work, drove to work, and I'd work till 6 o'clock. And maybe I'd take a lunch break. Maybe I wouldn't.
Right,
I would get a lot more done. I'm still getting a lot more done to this day because I'm working at 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock.
yep,
And, my wife will come grab me and she'll go, it's time for dinner. We should probably eat, or we
right,
need to take care of the dogs or something. I'm actually working harder, but in a more relaxed environment. I'm not worried
right,
about the drive home. I'm not worried. So, what is that improvement, right? There are improvements there. So to your point, don't start fixing something if it's maybe not broken,
right.
right? Don't put your stamp on it without fully understanding how that ecosystem works. Um, so how do we work our way out of the mess that they've dug themselves into with this breach, right? And so Joel and I kind of talked about this, and we came up with some good points, but we're only going to deal with this as if we're stepping into a new situation, right? We're
Right.
not dealing with it as if we are the current CISO,
No.
or anything like that. Everybody can play quarterback game, armchair quarterback with that. So we're not going to do this. I don't want to offend anybody on that security team that's there now. I'm sure
Nope.
you're doing a bang up job as best as you can. And
Yep.
honestly, in IT security, infosec, cybersecurity, whatever you want to call it, know that people do that the best they can with what they can, right? With the
Right.
knowledge they have, with the experience they're given, with the tools they're given, the budget, the environment, expectations. They do the
Right.
best they can. So it's very easy for somebody to go, well, Equifax could have done a better job. The Target could have done a better job with this and that.
Yeah.
Hey, hindsight's 2020,
It
as they
is.
say, or 2015,
Yeah.
or there's the truth that you came to understand it about a situation. But the reality of it is it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a problem, right? Like I've worked for large organizations or had clients that were ginormous organizations and they had no idea of asset management. And people could go, well, that's ridiculous. How could you not know how many computers you have or what's connected to your network? You're like, because they're dealing with 145,000 endpoints that come
Hmm.
on and off the network at will, at
Yep.
design, and segmentation and isolation of IT systems, and like there's a litany of reasons. So
Right.
we're not going to armchair quarterback the security team. That's not fair to them. I have a lot of respect for my peers out there.
Yep.
So we're from the inside, Joel. How do we work our way out of this mess? Like, what do you do? What do you not do?
So
Almost as
first,
important, what do you not do?
right. So don't blame anybody. At this point, it solves nothing. Right.
Yeah,
So everybody's posturing for, wasn't my fault. I didn't make that decision. I told them to do this. We shouldn't have did that. This is
right.
what that helps nothing at this moment. There will be a
Right.
time and a place for, okay, what happened? How did we get
Right.
here? Who did what? Who made what decisions? We'll get there. That comes,
Yeah.
right? But at this point, it's not beneficial. We're trying to
Right.
get back up and running, right?
Right.
We're trying to get back to our normal state, right? Or even better than our normal state. So what I would say to you is, what gets us there,
Right.
right? Blame
Right.
game does not get us there, right?
Right.
So I tell everybody, I don't want to hear it at this moment,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If it's not going to help us solve this situation here and get us back up running, save it. I don't want to hear
Yeah.
it. Because
Yeah.
right now, my complete focus is getting this network up and running, getting us secure, right? And then we can deal with, all that other stuff, right? So
Yeah.
immediately you have to set that tone very clear.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't, but
I,
no,
I
no.
was just gonna say, I'd like to add on to that. Like,
Mhm,
there's a lot of stress on this system at
mhm,
all levels, right? The people down here are worried that they're going to lose their job. The people up here at the board level are worried that they're going to get sued, arrested, fined,
mhm.
whatever, and everything in between. That is a nutcracker pressure zone of
Yep,
your employees are ready to quit because they're worried about, losing their job. And these people are pushing down because they're worried about going to jail or spending millions and they don't have so on, and they'll lose millions in their stock, and everything else. You in middle management, and if you're not the boss, you're in middle management. If you're not the
right.
lowest level employee, you're not the CEO or the chairman of the board. You are, middle management.
Yep,
It's a crap ton of pressure, right? So to your point, take it easy, take a deep breath, right? Tempers are going to flare, right? You can only, as the Stoics say, you can only control yourself, right? So do yourself a favor and
mhm,
and be the solution, not the problem, right? Take a deep breath, go, okay, I understand. Let's put a pin on that for now and let's focus on the problem in hand. Let's do this.
yep,
And don't, be respectful. Don't tell people to shut up, stop talking,
yeah,
hey, I
yeah,
appreciate that has merit in what you're discussing right now, but we really need to focus on this.
right.
Unless that has direct meaning to this, let's put a pin on it. You were going to jump in?
I was gonna say, figure out, like, when with it's stressful levels, sometimes you need to get people out of the room. They've
Yeah.
literally been working for 12, 13 hours, right?
Yeah.
They've been looking at the screen, they're trying to figure it out. And you may need to say, hey man, go take your lunch.
Yeah.
Hey, go walk.
Yeah.
Hey, leave the building for an hour. Hey,
Yeah.
go home and take a shower, change your clothes, come back. Go kiss your
Yeah.
wife and your kids, right?
Yeah.
Depending on who it is, because what happens is it gets them out of that environment, it gets them thinking about certain things, and they come back and we can use them more, right?
Right.
We can utilize their knowledge more because they have a clear understanding and kind of fresh their mind over. You need to figure out what it is that people need, right? It
Right.
may be with some of them, hey, let me take a walk with you,
Yeah.
right? Hey, because it's getting heated in here. I feel this ego. Let's take a walk, right?
Yeah.
Hey man, everything good? Yeah, I get that it's stressful, man. It's gonna be all right. We're good. Hey, look, we're gonna reset. We gotta get this. You can't think about stock prices right now. You can't think about job stuff right now. We got to do our job, and we're
Right.
getting paid to get this network back up and running. You get me?
Right.
All that other stuff will figure itself out, right?
Right.
Right. I promise you, man, we're gonna figure this out. But right now, this is what our number one thing is. I know it's hard, right? I know you,
Right.
but hey, we got this. Everything good at
Yeah.
home, right? You
Yeah.
talk with your wife. You call her. Okay,
Right.
well, give him a call. Give him a call
Right.
real quick before
Let
you
her
come
know
in. Let her
things
know
are
everything's
okay.
good. Let her know we're gonna be all right, right?
Right.
Hey, hopefully we get out here by the night if we can. But hey, you level set with people, right?
Yeah.
Bring them back in on what the focus is, because it is. You're right. To your point, it's a lot going on, right? And then once you do that, okay, here's our objective. And I think the problem that happens with a lot of these things, there's no clear objective, right? When
Yeah.
you look at the ones that do well, it is, hey guys, first identify what it is, right? We see that it's doing this is happening. How did it happen? How do we get there? How do we stop it? Once you
Right.
stop it, it's okay. Now, how do I get us back? What did we lose? Right? Answering these certain questions, right? Okay, we're back up and running. All right, are we confident this is not going to happen again? Right?
Right.
That okay. Once we have all that, we can then say, okay, we feel we're good now, and now we do
Right.
a post-mortem, right?
Right.
We do a after actions report. We do a lessons learned, and there's so many different names for it, right? But it's the most important part of any kind of breach situation. It's when
Yeah.
you all sit down and say, what happened,
Right.
right? What could have we done better?
Right.
What did we
What
miss?
what was not in place? Yeah. What did we
Right?
miss?
What did we
Yeah. That's
what
those are important.
Hey, and you level set with everybody. There is no such thing as a wrong answer. We're not pointing fingers. I just need to know, hey, if I would have took this training that I asked you about, where they talked about this at the thing, I would have been able to see that. Okay, that's good to know. Right. So training is
Yeah,
not adequate at this moment. Hey, we talked about this new tool feature that we have on the network, but we didn't pay for the feature that we really would have been able to stop this. Right. We would have installed this
right.
in the cloud. All we had to do was cut it off. Aha. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Right.
yeah.
So
Or
you're writing this stuff down. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, or like, hey, in the example of the API issue where they were just making a bunch of calls to use our API system to scrape the network, what oversight do we have on that
Right.
system, right? How do
Right.
we know if something bad, if somebody's using it for bad or evil purposes? How do we know that? How can we stop that?
Right.
How do we make sure that doesn't happen again? Because and what relies on that? So what out there relies on that process that's
Right.
legitimate,
Right.
right? Because you don't want to be like, well, just remove that. You're like, people
No,
pay for access for that. People,
we kind of
other
need that.
organizations, right? We
Right.
kind of need that. We put that out there for a reason. We didn't just say, let's just build this 2 meter exhaust port on the Death Star because someday we may want to, fire a torpedo into it, blow the
Right.
whole thing up. Like,
Right.
no, there was a valid reason why,
There
exhaust
is.
port. So, but it's to your point, like, don't no blame, keep it down, right? Keep the pressure off of people that need to be pressure. Keep people fresh. You have
Mhm.
an awesome point there, Joel. Is sometimes when you are 12 hours slugging at it, and that goes for yourself included, right? If you're in this for 12 hours, um, you need to take a break. That doesn't mean go home, take 8 hours, and go to sleep. That means
Mm-mm.
like go get a coffee, go get a cup of coffee, refresh your perspective on this,
Yep.
get out of the room,
Yep.
step out of the room for a little bit. And hopefully people have the presence of mind to be like, that person should step out of the room for
Right.
just a little bit,
Right.
clear your head. Because the last thing you want to do is start yelling and screaming at each other when that's not going
It
to solve
fixed
anything.
absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
Yelling and screaming fixes nothing in a situation like that. All it does is
yeah,
make you lose focus on what the goal is, right?
yeah,
Take it for somebody who knows, right?
yeah,
No, that's not what you want to do, right?
yeah.
Any sense or
You had a good point, and that I liked. You said on the side notes of as you're writing down things, or even on a
oh,
separate piece of paper, taking notes during the postmortem and the review, right? And you
what
started talking a little bit about that.
right. So, how many you met was you were a contractor consultant that came in to help me out, right? And usually, when you have a breach or a situation of some sort, you bring in, expertise. And as they're going through looking at stuff, they generally cannot help themselves. Mike will not
Yeah,
help himself. He'll say, "Oh man, if you had a WAF right here, right, this would have been perfect because it would have stopped this here." And then you
right,
stop and ask those questions. Well, how many WAFs? And why would I need a
right,
WAF? And what would it do on that port there? Oh, because of this here. So I take notes. Okay, WAF with this here. How many do you think I would need? Probably 3 Palos, this here. Okay, cool. Right. And by the end of the exercise, right, and that's during the incident, that is during the postmortem, I am taking a laundry list of things that we think will make our network stronger and better, right? And as we're coming into this situation for this incident to fix it, and then to get the organization back on track when it comes to the security staff, the one thing that's going to happen is they're going to say, "What do you need?" The
right,
executive team's going to say, "Hey, we're going to give you money," and it's going to be a
right,
lot of money, right? And what you don't want to do is blow it, right? You
right.
want to make sure that you can say, "I know exactly what we need," right? And
Yeah,
here's why, right? This is where I'd put the money. This is how much it's going to cost, right?
right.
Here's the return on the investment. Here's the total cost of ownership. Here, like you want to be able to speak their language, right? Immediately and explaining them what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing. But
Right.
you got to take notes, right?
Yeah.
You had mentioned about how you have a running list, right? Of
Yeah.
things that you want to implement or that have not been implemented that you want to buy. Like go
Yeah.
over that one, Mike.
So I prioritize things. And I always I keep this, you never have enough money, time, energy, people, you never do to do things to the way that you want to do them, right?
Right,
Or to the nth degree, as I like to call it, right? The five
right,
nines, the nth degree, whatever you want to call it. So I usually start with what do I absolutely need, right? So in this example, what were we missing that would have kept this problem from happening, right? Whether it, and to the case of API, some kind of oversight as to how much somebody was leveraging that API, how much traffic was going through that
Hmm.
API to a specific IP address or group of IP addresses. And so, well, we have no, okay, well, what would have solved that problem? I don't know, maybe a SolarWinds or,
Hmm.
and, well, we need this, and we just to understand how much is going through, or a web application firewall, WAF, what you were saying.
Hmm.
That's just to keep the lights on, to ensure this never happens again, right? If
Right.
we don't have it in place already. The second one is what gets us safer, right?
Hmm.
So not safe, but safer, right? How do
Hmm.
we ensure what are we missing? And to your point, you nailed it. It's not just tools, right?
Hmm.
It's not just another product or something like that. Sometimes it's process, it's people, it's training, it's
Hmm.
training for the environment, security awareness. Hey, we don't do phishing campaigns. We don't do this. We don't do
Hmm.
that. Um, you know, that will make us safer, right? This will make us safe. This will make us safer. And then
Hmm.
I always usually call what's called the 5 nines, or the nth degree ultimate option, which is, hey, if we really want to do this, I would suggest we do this, 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 and this. It comes at a premium price tag, but
Hmm.
here's what it locks down. Here's what it does. Here's what we get in return. I always make it a point to say and find the non-IT security benefit out of it, right? So cost reduction,
Hmm.
presence multiplier, reputation increase, whatever it is that is not I'm going to directly benefit, but to your words, Joel, speaks the language of the finance people, speaks the
Hmm.
language of the development team, of the IT people, of the users. In my case, the healthcare staff, the provider staff and things like that. What makes their life easier? Um, you know, Passwordless environment. Okay, well, what does that cost? Well, it's this, this, this. It's all these systems. It's training of our end users, but the end goal is the end users don't need to remember passwords anymore. And it happens like this, and it's more secure because of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Well, that sounds awesome. How
Right.
expensive is that? And to your point, it's amazing that, and I say this tongue in cheek, in the infosec cybersecurity world, we always laugh about how budget before a breach happens, budget after a breach happens, right? Like, and unfortunately, that's the case, because it's like, if we don't fix this, if we end up in this situation 3 months from now, we are probably going to go out of business.
Right.
Right. Or we are going to lose a significant amount of business, where people will lose their jobs,
Right.
so on and so forth.
I,
Um,
I would also say too, in that same vein, um, when you when it's done and said, your
mhm,
postmortem, it is easy to immediately go into new products, and we're implementing new stuff, right?
right.
And what I would say is your team has just put in a lot of hours, right?
Yeah.
Done a lot of good work, right? You fix whatever it is. You're in a you're in a good state, right? We're trying to
Right.
get in a safer state now, right? We're in a
Right.
safe state. We're running and doing what we need to do. One of the things that's important is not only have a postmortem, but then you need to do something to celebrate your team, right?
Yeah.
You must celebrate the effort and time they put in. Hey guys, hey, I just want to tell y'all that hey, we appreciate you. I appreciate the time and effort that you put in. And if you can get some of your executives to come down and either eat lunch with them, or
Yeah.
you cater something, it doesn't have to be super big, but it means a lot to say, hey, y'all busted your tail, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, we could not have got it done in the time frame we did without you. You
Yeah.
have to do that. You cannot take
Yeah.
them for granted,
Yeah.
because what happens is I'm so tired, and now you just said we're buying this new product and we're going to implement it in 30 days. What? Right?
Yeah.
There's no breakup to say, hey, I know we just finished this, right? And yes, we're going to buy this new product, and I've told you about this, but I just want to take a moment to really celebrate y'all,
Right.
right? Because guess what? A day won't hurt y'all, right? A
Yeah.
day won't hurt your
Yeah.
company to say, hey, we're gonna hang out today, right? We're gonna go to Top Golf. We're gonna have some drinks, have some food, hang out,
Yeah.
or whatever it
Release
is,
the
right?
pressure. Release the
Release the
pressure.
pressure. Everybody gets to laugh and joke
Yeah.
and hey, I can't believe that, man. Can you believe we slept on the cot, man? I fell asleep in my chair. Like, have those stories, bond with one another, and
Yeah.
then at the end just say, hey, and now we're gonna implement this new product, and we're gonna knock this out, guys. I know you can do it. This is gonna save us from this here. And we've had like a great bonding moment, and then we jump into the next week and we get it rocking
Yeah.
and rolling.
Yeah. And to your point, like, set expectations, right? Like to your point, oh, we're going to implement this in 30 days. You're like, no, we're going to take a break, recover, make sure everybody's good, get everybody back to a normal return to operations.
Hmm.
Return to operations doesn't just mean, the website's up and running.
Right.
It means everybody is sleeping, going home at night, relaxed, and they are ready to grind out their normal 40-hour, 40, 50-hour week job,
Hmm.
right? Like, get everybody back to normal.
Hmm.
Your people are burned out from this event. Get them
Yep.
back to normal. So set expectations. Don't bite off more than you can chew, right? Hey, we're going to buy this product. We're going to install this. We're going to put this. Stop for a second.
Right.
like,
Right.
we every year we when we build budgets and stuff like that, everybody sends I want all this stuff, and you're like, how are you going to get that installed? What's your timeline?
Right.
Well, we're going to spend 3 days to implement this. You're like, that's not a 3-day project.
Right.
Like, that's a 2-week project. Let's
Right.
pull it back a little bit. Because
Right.
you got people going on vacation. You want to go to a conference. You want to go to training.
Hmm.
Hey, who's the redundancy on this? Well,
Right.
don't bite off more than you can chew. I think that's one. You had a good case as well from your experience in the government.
Oh,
September.
yeah. So you got to be ready. So the end of the fiscal
Yeah.
year, around September comes, money has to be spent or you lose it. Right. And
Right.
depending on what company you're with, there are a lot of companies that do a lot of work in the government space, and they run on that fiscal calendar as well.
Yeah.
So at the end, I would always have a budget, right? I'd have a proposal ready, right, for something I wanted, some product I wanted, some application I wanted, some tool I wanted, even training I wanted, right?
Yeah.
And I have it already ready. It's good to go. And my director would come around and say, "Hey, look, we have 1.5 million. We got to get rid of, right?
Right.
Throw it at me. What do we have?" And I literally be like, "Well, I got this,
Right.
and I got this, right? Takes care of everything." And there'd be other people, managers in the room, and they, "Oh, well, I wanted to get some of that too." And he'd be like, "What? How much is it going to cost?" "I'm not sure yet, but I can have it for you." "But Joel, I have everything here. It's
Right.
ready." So as a manager, what are you going to do? Say, "Hey, you got to the end of the day?" No. You're going to say, "I got these here. I want to get this off my plate," because somebody higher than him had already called him and said, "Hey, look, I looked at your budget. That you're going to lose money, which hurts me. Get it done."
Right.
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 So because I could just pull this out, boom, 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 here, I can send it over to you right now. We just need to get it signed. It was always like, "Go forth and make good things happen, Joel. Good job."
Yep.
And on my review, it always came up like, "Joel, you're always there for us. You're a team player, whatever." And all I did was get quotes of things I wanted. So out through the year, I was like, "Ooh, that sounds nice. I like that.
Yeah.
We don't have budget for it now, but okay, let me get a quote." And then you
If
get
I do
close,
find money, if
I will
something
buy it.
happens, yeah. Yeah, I do that all the time. I meet with vendors all the time, discuss and I'll set expectations like, I don't have a budget for this right now.
Right. Right.
However, this is budget season. This is this. If something
Hmm.
comes up, how long does it take to get a quote? Right? How long does
Right.
it take to get a statement of work? What's the total dollar amount from a
Hmm.
budgetary perspective, knowing that there are dials and levers here that the price can go up and down, whatever. It gets to the end of the quarter, end of year, maybe that price goes down because they're trying to sell as much as possible.
Yep.
It's all the tricks that everybody pulls
Yep.
on both sides of the table.
They
But
do.
yeah, that's
They do.
I think you may have mentioned, or someone may have mentioned it to me. Don't be the smartest person in the room, but always try to be the most prepared, right?
Yes. Yes.
Be the most prepared person, and that doesn't
Yes.
mean like have a plan. You're not Batman. Like, don't have a plan for everything, right? Meteors, you're like, no, dinosaurs,
Yeah.
no. I don't need a plan for that, but to be prepared, like you said, for real life scenarios. If we do find more money, if we have an acquisition, if we have a divestiture, if we have this, if a breach happens, have a plan.
Stay
Right?
ready.
The Dark Knight.
Stay
Dark
ready.
Knight. People freak out unless somebody has a plan, even if it's a bad one. People don't freak out, right?
Right.
Which is why
Hey,
chaos.
let's go into takeaways, right?
Sounds good.
So
Kick
my
us
thing
off,
is-
sir.
So we talked about blaming, right? Don't go through blaming folks, right? Or try not to be blameless, right? At that moment, you need to get things fixed, right? You need to get everything back up and running. You need to remove the stress as much as possible. Keep everybody focused on their task, and be a shield to your team as well if you're in management, right?
Absolutely.
So upper management is gonna be stressed out, and they're going to try to get information from anybody they can, right?
Right.
So they'll be calling people, pinging people, and whatnot. And you need to be a shield, right? And that's why you establish baselines and rules from the beginning, right? That's why you do tabletop exercises for incident response, so that they know all questions come to me.
Right.
Don't call this person. Don't
Right.
look for this person. If you see him in the hallway, you say, "Hey man, you're doing good. Keep going." That's it.
Right.
Everything
Right.
you want to know is going to come from me, right? And that helps your team, because now they're not stressed out, because they're like, "Well, somebody asked me a question, and then I told them this, but now they're upset, and now I'm getting blindsided in meetings because they're like, well, I was told by your guy, the engineer, that this," and you're like, he shouldn't have told you that. No,
Right.
what actually is going on is this, right? So all factual, all information is gonna come from me, right?
Right.
And that's one of the things I set up very quickly, right? We have an incident, you look for nobody else but me.
Right.
I'm gonna give you all your information. Marketing
If I'm not in
standpoint,
the country, talk to this person.
right,
Let's
right.
start with me. Right.
Start with me, right? Hey, marketing, hey, you need to know how we're gonna do this, communications, come to me. There's a question
Right.
that came in, it's gonna come from me, right? Hey, CEO, CFO, you're trying to figure out, come to me, right? Protect your team, right? Put that umbrella to protect them so they can focus on the job at hand, right? And you'll
Right.
be surprised their stress level and what they don't know will help them, right? Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Second one.
No, so get it up and running as clean as soon as possible.
Right.
Right. So make sure that all of the indicators are compromised, all the bad stuff, all the things that are there.
Mhm.
Make sure that that's all cleaned out, taken care of, get it up and running as clean and as safe as possible. Right.
Mhm.
Obviously, if they got in through this back door, make sure that back door is locked and that you got a camera on it or
Right.
something like that. But make sure that you've taken care of it as cleanly and as soon as possible, right? So that the real work can begin,
Right.
right? Recovery, return to operations and recovery is the most stressful and the fastest and everything else. But it also has to be the most carefully done, right? I've seen it where people are like, "Are we good?" And you're like, "No, we're good." They throw it back up, and the attackers are like, "Nice try. You didn't stop this," and they
Right.
send the attack again, and your system's brought down again, and now they're inside. They're even worse, right? Because now
Right.
that you've reopened it, you're like, "You didn't put that firewall rule back in place, did you?" And they're like, "I may have put the firewall rule back in place." You're like, "Okay, kill it, remove that rule,
Right.
make it back, and let's recover again, because do it right this time." That happens more often than most people would like to admit, but yeah,
Right.
be careful when you're setting things up. What else you got?
Hey, again, we talked about taking notes, right?
Yeah.
Understanding what you're hearing, right? Understanding what you need, right? Taking little notes here and there. And the whole time you're going through things, you should take notes. And I do
Yeah.
this when I take a new job. I
Yeah.
go to a lot of meetings. I take a lot of notes, right? And I've talked to you before about this, about how I can hear something that I'm like, huh, intriguing, right? And I write it down, and then I get in another meet and it comes up, and I'm like, well, we just talked about this, and you said, how's that work? Okay. And then you can ask those questions to get kind of, how do these two things, you said this, but then you also said this. They don't
Yeah.
they don't match up, right?
Yeah.
Take notes, right? Or when somebody says, "Oh man, if we had this here, it would have protected the API and this wouldn't happen," right? Okay. Hey, if we needed more people to look over those logs when we get those alerts, right? That alert wasn't set up correctly, so it didn't chime to us to let us know, or we didn't see it, right? So it would have been nice if we configured the system a little different.
Yeah.
That's
Or
good to
it's
know,
noise. The other
right?
thing is it's noise. There's so
It's
much
very
noise
noisy,
where we wouldn't have heard,
right?
the bad things coming through because it's well, okay,
It's
great, good
it's
to know.
shouted by all this other noise, right? And that's good to know, because now you're like, okay, we got to figure out if the tool we have is configured correctly,
Right.
or do we need to get something else that can really like dig down to give me factual data, right?
Right.
And
Right.
takes all the rest of it out. And how do we figure that out, right?
How
So
do we figure
again, understanding that, right? And it's not going to be an overnight situation, but take notes, right?
Right.
I just feel like
Right.
at the end of the day, take notes and have those notes and where you want to go and what you want to do kind of planned out, right? You should
Yeah.
in your mind be like, okay, here's what's going on. Be able to tell that story as well, right? So you have an incident, you have a way you're fixing it. You need to be able to tell a story to executives and leadership on what happened. Hey guys, so let me tell you what we got. Right at 9:32, I got a phone call that we saw this here. Right, so we investigated, went here, we did this here. We now know it's an incident, right? And the reason why we know it's an incident is because of this. We immediately move into our plan, right, and give them the bop, right? Hey, now that we fixed it, this is what we're doing now. This is
Right.
our next 3 days, right?
Right.
Boom, 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 boom. Right. And then once we do this, we would do X, Y, and Z. You give them the full picture. And then what they will do is they'll come back with clarifying questions. Hey, I just want to make sure I understood. So at 9:30, is that when that happened? Like, what is our obligations to others? Right. So that's a great question. Right. And legal's here to back me up. But we weren't obligated into this time here. And then we notified everybody that we're supposed to at this time. And on my running list that we talked about before we did our last tabletop, here's are the companies that we're responsible for notifying if we have an incident. And we did that. John
Right.
took care of that in communications. Is that correct? Yes. With the statement that we already wrote up, right? That's what you want versus I was so busy trying to get us back up running. I don't remember. I don't know if we did that. So we could be
Right.
in breach, right? And again, that can happen because you're so busy trying to get whatever the situation is done. There's obligations that you're still responsible for. And the best time to figure out your obligations is before breach.
It's before an emergency, right?
Before breach.
Before
Right?
you are lighting yourself on fire. Yeah.
Right. You kind of want to know that. And last but never least, go ahead, sir.
Oh, just it's not always tools. Could be people, could be process, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be like, oh, this failed because of our process. This failed
Right.
because we didn't have training, because we don't test our people enough.
Yep.
Pen testing, right? So as a former pen tester, it's like, hey, you have all these solutions in place. Have you simulated an attack against it? No. How do you know it works? Right? You're like, we don't. And you're like, well, let's go find that out. Right?
Right.
It's very inexpensive compared to a breach. A pen test is a very low cost way to ensure your defenses are in place.
Yep.
And I don't want to be a doomsayer. I never lead with fear, uncertainty, and doubt as a sales pitch. But at the end of the day, sometimes it really is, hey, we just need to test this and we'll be good to go.
Yep. I agree.
So, all right. That's all I got, sir. What else you got?
Hey, that is it, man. Any final words you want to leave with the people?
I always like to lead with knowing is half the battle. No, I'm
G.I.
kidding.
Joe, yes, man.
That's Joel's line.
I love it.
Yeah,
I
that's
love it,
Joel's
baby.
line. Mine is basically cooler heads prevail, right? And I wish I could go back in time and tell the younger me, slow down, take a deep breath, walk away, de-escalate, be calm. Don't blame, don't be blameless, fix the problem, be the solution, not the problem. And take a deep breath, because there's already pressure walking into that room.
Mhm.
You don't need to add any more. Right. So be good to yourself, be good to your people, be good to the people who are also under a lot of stress and pressure. Take it easy.
I will also say mental health is real, right?
Yeah.
Know that you are loved. Know that we care, and no matter how bad it looks, there's always a brighter day, right?
Yeah.
Please reach out for help if you need it. There's so many different outlets out there for you, but we can't stress enough how much mental health means to us, right? So,
Right.
with that being said, man, we appreciate y'all. Y'all take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Hit the like button if you like the content. Hit the subscribe button. We do this at least once a week.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So leave a comment either in the YouTube or LinkedIn, your platform of choice, Facebook. We're going to try and expand out a little bit. Joel's doing a great job expanding our footprint out there, but we always want to get better and get people what they want to hear and everything else. So just let us know.
Yep. We'll talk with you soon.
Happy New Year, everybody.